On this special edition of Independent Sources, the hijab and the athlete, why more Muslim women are on the front lines of their community's battle against Islamophobia in this country.
Independent Sources, your window to the city's ethnic and immigrant communities. Your host this week, Zyphus Lebrun.
This week, we're going to take a look at Muslim women, in particular athletes who've been thrust into the vanguard of the ever-evolving debate over Islamophobia. The headscarf or hijab that these women wear as part of their modest attire sets them apart from their competitors and teammates and has also made them the subject of much scrutiny and debate. Their fight for their individual rights to wear their head wraps has become a microcosm of a larger debate about religious expression and acceptance in society. The 2016 Olympic bronze medalist in fencing, Ibtihaj Muhammad, has become one of the most high-profile and vocal of these athletes. Another is Bilqis Abdul-Qaadir, who will be part of our conversation this week. Abdul-Qaadir was part of the effort to get the International Basketball Federation, or FIBA, to overturn their policy of not allowing Muslim athletes to wear their headscarves during games. Abdul-Qaadir joined journalists Shireen Ahmed and Gary Pierre-Pierre to have a discussion about why more female athletes have taken on this role.
Shireen, thanks for being in studio today. Bilqis, thank you for joining us via Skype. But before we begin, Bilqis, I want you to take a look at an excerpt from a film that focused on the challenges you face because of wearing your hijab.
Trying to think how I can word it, because it's really just a feeling that I feel. Everything that I have is just 2 years ago. And in a way, you're still kind of telling the same story. If that opportunity opened up, I would play. But I'm still kind of battling that battle.
It was a historic night in Springfield.
Senior Bilqis Abdul-Qaadir blew Rebecca Lobo's scoring record out of the water.
I mean, anything is possible. Never give up, practice, your dreams come true, basically.
I literally graduated, went home, gathered all my bags, and went to the airport. So that's how fast things were going.
Where's Bilqis? Right here. Stand up, Bilqis, just so that I want everybody to know. She's got heels on. She's 5'5". She's an athlete on her way to Memphis. Bilqis is an inspiration not simply to Muslim girls, she's an inspiration to all of us.
Bilqis Abdul-Qaadir has been invited to the Pro-Am Combines. These events give the top college seniors in the country a chance to be evaluated by foreign coaches.
I wasn't ready for what was about to happen, you know, like I was just trying to play.
For the first time in her playing career, Bilqis Abdul-Qaadir has hit a roadblock. Basketball's governing body, FIBA, has ruled that bans players from wearing equipment that may cause injury to others, including headwear, hair accessories, and jewelry.
In the wake of terrorist attacks in Paris and San Bernardino, for these historic figures, just as for the other 5 million plus Muslims in the United States, this has been an especially visible month when their faith and world events have echoed across American society, making this question a complex one to answer. What is it like to be a Muslim athlete in the United States today?
It's hard being a young Muslim woman in America. It takes strength to walk outside and look different than everybody else.
I pray that it gets better, but I think, you know, there's so many mindsets that would have to be changed.
People kind of look at you different when they see Muslim women. They have this stereotype that they're quiet, that they're submissive, that they're not supposed to do these certain things. Everybody thinks, yeah, it's just a sport. But when I play basketball, I worry about nothing. It takes me out of real life. I was gonna finish school, I was gonna play basketball, I was gonna do all this stuff, and now it's just like a huge question mark. Right now, I don't know who I am. Am I anybody without basketball, you know? Am I still myself?
So Bilqis, tell us, what's changed since then?
A lot has changed since then. The rule that FIBA had in place on the hijab is now gone. It's been a long 3 years, so to get that removed was a huge deal.
And you said your life has changed. How has it changed? That was a really profound statement you made. You don't even know who you are. I believe that's what you said.
Yeah, well, basketball was and still is a huge part of me. It was a passion. And having to choose between my faith and the sport that I loved and the sport that has been a part of my life since day one was, that was a huge decision for me. So I had to re-identify who I was without the sport. Mm-hmm. And it kind of was not a choice. It was just, I was forced to do it. So it took a lot, but I can say that, I think I found another calling, or I found another part of me that I didn't know I had.
So what are you doing these days? Tell us more about you.
Right now, I'm an athletic director at an Islamic school in Memphis, Tennessee. And I've been doing a lot of speaking engagements and a lot of just small basketball clinics for Muslim communities across the U.S. Okay. So I really do enjoy it.
So Shireen, why do you think that Muslim female athletes are becoming such a point of discussion?
Considering the political climate, I think there's a lot of, and hopefully I think this is a good thing, effort to amplify voices of those women. And I think it has a lot to do with the women themselves, because of social media, are coming out with blogs, they're coming out with Twitter accounts and Instagram and Snapchat to tell their own stories. And this is, I'm not going to credit the media for any of this, I'm going to credit the women themselves. Sure. And as Bilqis already mentioned, FIBA rescinded their ban very recently, which will come into effect in October 2017. But it was Bilqis and Indira and Asma and this group of really formidable women that kept pushing FIBA to change. And this is really important, and media started to say, oh, this is women making change. This is women working with Sikh community who are also banned because of their turbans. This is working together to push this. And I think people are starting to notice that and pay attention to it. I mean, that's one of the things I do in my work, is amplify those stories. Mm-hmm.
Are they getting pushback from folks who feel that, first of all, we have female athletes now, they want to bring their religion into the court and all of that. What kind of pushback rather, have these athletes been getting?
The athletes, the people who write about the athletes, their families. I mean, social media can be a good thing to create change, but it can also, I'm sure it can be anything from gendered Islamophobic comments, xenophobic comments, racist, misogynist, pushback, and people telling you that we don't want your faith. I mean, Bilqis is not propagating anything when she's shooting her threes. She's shooting her threes when she's, when women are playing soccer on the pitch, whether they're covered or uncovered, because there's a lot of athletes that are Muslim that don't wear a scarf, they're not doing anything but being in the moment and playing that sport. And to take away that right is really problematic. And then there's, first of all, they said we don't want it, it's a safety issue. And just to clarify, in any sport, because I do this research and I'm a journalist, I look for it, there's no evidence that a headscarf has caused injury to an athlete or an opponent. So that doesn't exist. So then they sort of say, well, we don't want you to have a culture of religion in sport. But as we know in football or soccer, your viewers might know soccer, there's so much
We have some who know football as well.
Yeah. So there's always, there's gestures of goal celebrations, of thanking God from whatever religion. And that's just a part, you can't separate that from an athlete. And that's the athlete's own personal choice. And that should be fine.
So Bilqis, share with us some of the interactions, some of the comments you faced from public, from your opposing teams.
Well, those started pretty early on. I remember one in particular situation in high school. I was taking the ball out right by the fan section, and behind me was, a very large crowd of young kids. And as I'm taking it out, he yells out that I look like Osama bin Laden's niece. And, it was a terrible joke because nobody knows what his niece looks like. But it was just, to be a sophomore or junior in high school and to hear that type of comment, the game stopped. My coach came across. My coach is a very big guy. He wanted to snatch this kid out of the stands by his neck, I'm sure. But he didn't. But it started off just with comments like that, very ignorant comments. And then even in college, where you think you would be around more diverse crowd, more intelligent people, same thing. I've been called many names during the silence of my free throws, or when I walk into stadiums. People would just stare, and after a while you get a little irritated. But I remember just some of my teammates just like, come on, Kesey, just play, or trying to encourage me to ignore the outsiders. But it kind of gives you a motivation and an energy, to prove that, don't worry, I might look different, but I can still play.
Well, you certainly can play. So, have you embraced this role? Is this something that you took on reluctantly because you felt it had to be done?
For sure. It was a very reluctant decision. I think I was, like I said before, I think I was forced into this position. And a good friend of mine kind of called me an athlete activist. And sometimes when I'm on stage or when I'm doing these interviews, I think about, man, I just wanted to play. I just want to play. But like you said, there was nobody else in that position at the time that I knew of. And then after I took the stand, I found out about a whole different group of girls who were also Muslim, who also covered and played basketball. So to join forces with women all over the world just to fight for one sport, I think that was a beautiful thing, and I'm glad that I did step out of my own box and make change.
Sure. So Shireen, do Muslim athletes in general, do they have a role to be more activist than others? Is that a burden that's placed on them?
That's a great question, Gary, and I think what ends up happening in my experience and seeing these stories, that they end up having to advocate for something, especially when you're in the margins. You end up either having to advocate for uniform accommodation, for inclusion, for recognition, like against racism and homophobia. And athletes, of color and athletes from marginalized communities end up having to do this. So when you think about the mental stress of this, that not only do they have to be in top shape and focus on their game and their performance, they also have to go out and battle and juggle societal pressures and what it means. And there's pressure from within and sometimes within a community. I mean, I think Bilqis is wonderful in that she adds so much and her voice is so powerful. And I'm sure she'd rather be schooling people on a court, but she's so good at what she does and sharing the story. And these are stories people need to hear, because as someone in the media, it's not only important the story itself, but who tells the story. Sure. And I think that's so important, particularly in this era where Muslim women are articulate, they're intelligent, they have their opinion and perspective to share and show solidarity with other communities. And I think that can only come from those voices.
Certainly, very good point. But before we continue our conversation, let's watch a Nike commercial on the issue.
إيش حيقولوا عنك؟ إنك مو المفروض تكوني هنا، إنه ده مو ليكي، إنه دي ما هي لعبتك، أو يمكن يقولوا إنك قوية، إنه ما حد يقدر يوقفك، إنك حتلاقي طريقك. إنك قدهم، إنك أبهرتيهم. أو يمكن يقولوا إنك حتصيري شيء كبير.
So Bilqis, were you surprised that Nike made such a strong statement about this issue?
I was actually a little surprised, only because, Nike is not known for standing up for religious rights or movements. However, that was very helpful towards our situation in regards to FIBA and the hijab ban, because no one would have known about, the Nike hijab or what they were trying to do for Muslim women in sport. And you know, you have a power Nike stand up for something. I mean, it was on website. I got tagged in it on social media probably 1,000 times that day. Like people saying like, oh, this is for you. Like maybe FIBA's going to make the decision soon. And so it was definitely a push in the right direction. I'm grateful for Nike to, you know, to take that stand. But I also hope that it was a genuine stand.
Okay. So, Shireen, ironically enough, some of the pushback against, you know, women athletes wearing the hijab and all that comes from within. Why is that? And what are you guys doing to really educate the Muslim community about this issue?
I think the push comes from all sides. I think no Muslim woman is a monolith and no two stories are the same. So as much as it might seem unpopular, you've got people like Bilqis out there teaching. I mean, my children attended an Islamic school, had a very strong Muslim physical education teacher. So in a way there is, but I would say the majority of the pushback is actually from outside of the community. I'm not saying that individual families don't, you know, might not support as much, but let's just say I was born and raised in North America and my parents fully supported my sport. They fully supported my choice to wear a headscarf. But it's like the institutions and the systems that are way more of the challenge, in my opinion, in this case. Sure. And when Nike, and let's just be clear that Nike was certainly not the first company to come out with a sports hijab. They've been on the market for at least 17 years.
Yeah, but they're the biggest.
They're the biggest, yeah. And this says something. I mean, we know that we're athletes. We know we work out. We know that, you know, the aunties of the community go to the Zumba class. We know that the girls are out there. And what this has done is just change the idea of what an athlete can look like. And that pushback coming back is most often from people in power who don't like the idea changing. And I mean, that's too bad. So we're going to keep going.
So Bilqis, what do you have to do within the community to educate them?
Number one, we need to just be present as Muslims in every community, whether it's within Muslim communities, outside. People need to know who we are, like just in general, not even about us playing sports or, you know, just how we look or how we don't look. People don't understand the faith. People don't understand the basics of our faith. So they think we are literally aliens. Like still to this day, I walk up to people and they think that we believe in some crazy being, and it's unbelievable. You know, it's like 2017, you have no idea, you know. And so I think right now what we have to do is, number one, be present. And I think we have to physically be present, and we have to do more around these communities, whether it's in sports or giving back or just pure education on our faith and who we are and what we believe. And I really do think that once we break down that wall between ourselves and outsiders, then you can bring a ball in the picture, and that connection right there is a unique one in itself.
Bilqis, thanks for sharing your story with us.
Thank you.
Shireen, thanks for joining us in the studio.
Thank you for having me, Gary.
Still to come on the show, how a local athlete plans to give back and inspire other young women. Thanks for staying tuned to our special edition focusing on Muslim athletes and the hijab. Aya Elsekhely admits that she nearly quit her fledgling career as a track and field athlete after a slow start. However, a stern pep talk from her dad, after her mom had already okayed her decision to quit the team, led her back to the track and glory. Elsekhely went on to break records in her freshman year in the 55-meter hurdles and 800-meter dash while studying biomedical engineering at the New Jersey Institute of Technology. She's one of the growing number of Muslim women who are using the platform of their sport to speak up about Islamophobia. But unlike her friend Ibtihaj Muhammad, Aya's platform is more local. We hear more in this report produced by Maria Vami.
It was very hard to push myself to be on a team where people are better than you and you're also different. You know, you wear a scarf, you wear a hijab, and you're trying to be like everyone else, be good at a sport. It was more or less believing in myself, and it just being on a team gave me so much confidence. I know sometimes in high school and in college, our long runs would consist of my teammates asking me questions about why I wear the scarf, how do I coordinate my outfits with my hijab. So it's just been a lot of knowledge transfer, and I feel like that is something that is missing today, is when we hear all this Islamophobia and terrorism talk, it's just that, do you know a Muslim? If you know a Muslim, you know that Muslims are not terrorists. You know that not all Muslims are terrorists. You know that Muslims in our religion is that we have to be good to our neighbors. We have to donate every year. We have to help everybody, you know? We have to put others before us. Being a hijabi Muslim, an athlete, has helped me spread what Islam is. I did have an encounter with Islamophobia in high school and my French class. My teacher was talking about languages, and he called me and asked me in the classroom what language I spoke at home, and I said that I speak Arabic, and he said, Arabic, the language of terror. So at first I was shocked and didn't know how to respond, and after the class ended, he apologized to me. And I wasn't going to do anything about it, but my classmates are actually the ones that told the vice principal, and he ended up getting fired. And I'm thankful for my classmates that went ahead and did something about it when I didn't do anything about it at the time. And that's something that has taught me to stand up for myself and not let anyone say anything to me like that, because it's not okay. My mom thought that I wasn't going to be able to get a scholarship because I wear a hijab at college, but that wasn't a factor that hindered my athletic ability, you know? Like, it's facts. I run this time regardless if I wear hijab or not. Before I went to NJIT, we had a meeting with my coach and my parents. And in the meeting, she had asked my coach if the scarf was going to hinder anything, and my coach said no. I would have to adjust the uniform accordingly. So I would wear leggings underneath my shorts, and then I would wear long sleeves underneath the tank top. My teammates helped me a lot by giving me ice packs to put on my neck, on my wrists, to help accommodate the heat, always getting me water. And everyone knew about my religion, so it felt more like a family, so it was nice to have that. For women that have to choose between their faith and a sport, I think it's unfair, and I think you're letting someone not be able to participate in something that potentially they can be good at and can benefit different countries if you're looking at it from that perspective. But it also benefits the individual so much, and not letting someone participate in that because of their hijab or a headscarf is something that is sad. One of my teammates told me that there was another Muslim woman who was also covered, and she was on the NJIT fencing team. And her sister is Ibtihaj, who was the first Muslim woman to represent the United States in hijab at the 2016 Olympic Games. We've been friends since my freshman year. I think Ibtihaj becoming a spokesperson on hijab is good because there was a void of that. She's someone who's recognized worldwide, and that's someone who brings good to our religion, you know, because nowadays Islam is viewed as something that's terror and something bad. So bringing home a bronze medal, that's something that's amazing. And you don't see the religion aspect in that. You see like a good Muslim athlete who's doing something for our country. The future of Muslim female athletes is growing. Some women might be fearful to going into sports. They might not think that they're able to do it, just like how my mom didn't think that I was able to get a scholarship at NJIT. But it's just a matter of fact of actually going through and doing it. You always need that one person in the beginning that's going to help you push you, and then you'll be motivated to keep going. I want to become a track and field coach. I want to help girls in high school and eventually in the collegiate level achieve their goals of what they want to do and push them more than what they think they can go through. Because that's what happened to me, is that someone believed in me before I even believed in myself. And I know how much of an effect that had on me. So giving that to someone else is something that I want to do.
That's our show this week. Thanks for staying tuned. Before we go, just a program note. Next week, we'll continue our look at how Muslim women are responding to hate crimes in the U.S. with a conversation about one group's efforts to teach women self-defense. Till then, be independent-minded.